This week we've moved to the south coast near Corfe Castle for the penultimate round of the British Mountain Biking National Series. And as well as being one of the most picturesque courses this year, today's race also looks like being one of the hottest. In the overall standings, Louise Robinson is now leading after her round 4 win, which Deb Morrell missed for the World Cup. For the men's, Chris Young still has a comfortable lead, but behind him it's very tight, although David Baker and Gary Ford are still in America. The World Cup has now crossed the Atlantic, and the first stop was the high-altitude venue for the '94 World Championships, Vale. The women's series leader Julie Furtado soon established the lead on the first climb over a chasing trio of Paula Petzer, Eva Orvasova and Tammy Jacks. The American seemed determined to wipe out the memory of her poor ride at the Worlds, where she was 6th. Alison Sidor, who won her rainbow jersey here, soon moved up to 3rd behind Petzo, but the fastest rider on the course was Caroline Alexander. She had finally found her elusive form of '94, and had it not been for a stick in her spokes, she would no doubt have passed Sidor before the end. However, no one was going to challenge Furtado as she took her 3rd win of the series. In the men's race, Rishi Gruhl set the early pace, leading a group containing Andreas Brenes, Don Myra and Ned Overend. On the second lap, their lead was being closed by Thomas Frischneck and the world champion Henrik Janice. When they joined Gruhl at the front, it was hard to choose the winner until the Klein rider damaged a wheel, which allowed Frischneck to charge off on his own. The battle for second was now between Janice and Myra, but on the final lap, Tim Gould, who had been making steady progress throughout, powered past both of them and started to close the gap on the Swiss rider, while Rishi's brother Ranjit gave the family something to smile about as he moved through for 3rd. Gould's challenge came through too late, and Frischneck's victory was some compensation for his pre-race crash that kept him out of last year's Worlds here. So halfway through the series and the top 2 are well clear, but Petzo has a lot to do if she's to challenge Furtado for her crown. And it's a similar story in the men's, with Frischneck leapfrogging Hoydal to take the lead, though for Britain, Gould is now challenging for 3rd. With many of the top men concentrating on the World Cup, some of our younger riders who had international success themselves as juniors are now making a mark in the seniors, such as Richard Thackeray's round 2 win and Andrew Wright's 3rd place in Scotland.
I was pleased with 3rd. It was a home crowd, so I think they were quite delighted with it. I've known for a while that I can get up there with the best. It's just a matter of getting the training done and building it up gradually.
It makes it harder when there's not as much people here because you've more pressure to actually win. But once you've won one, you're more keen to win another. And after my bike breaking at the last one, it's really keen for a win.
It's quite a change from the sort of hour-and-a-half laps of the junior, where you're just absolutely hammering flat out. These races are a lot longer. It takes time to build up stamina. I guess it comes with age. I seem to be now catching a lot of people towards the end of the races, rather than just hammering to the front and them catching me.
Most of the top riders, they don't start really getting the big results until perhaps 23, 24. It's just racing miles in my legs, you know. I haven't been doing it long enough to be able to last 2.5, 3 hours flat out. I'm still having to pace it, take it steady early on and try and come through at the end. Whereas the guys that are winning races are going flat out from the word go.
It's been a steady start to the season for me because I've just finished off my degree at Loughborough University, and I've just finished my exams last week, so I've just been taking it steady early season. I'm looking to sort of get back to the sort of form that I had at the Nationals last year. In the next few weeks I'll start training hard, and hopefully the form will come back in time for the Nationals again, and you know, maybe I can go one better than next year. You never know, maybe 2 better.
However, one former top junior has had the chance to pit himself against the world's best.
I'm finding it a bit tough. I mean, it's a bit of a shock to the system, you know, because I've been thrown in at the deep end as such, going from English races straight into the World Cup Series. I know I can go fast enough at the start of the race for, say, 3 laps, and then the remaining 2 laps I tend to blow up a little bit, either not finish or just struggle for the last 2 laps, basically. So I think over the winter I've got to do a lot more mileage, and again, it's because I'm only just 20 as well, and most of the riders who are doing well are 25, 27, so I've got a long way to go yet, and I think stamina comes with age rather than training.
Meanwhile, the women's field is back to full strength after a mixed set of results in the States.
I was very pleased with my ride in Vale because that was going to be the toughest race, and all the girls bar Alison and Liv 16,000 feet plus. So that was really pleasing, but I'm certainly not firing on all 4 cylinders. But I'm hoping in the next week or so to go and see a few people and get my body sorted out and then build up for the end of the season and really go for the Worlds.
I had a good ride at Mount Snow. It's been very hot conditions out there. Mount Snow, I didn't go quite so well, but still somehow managed to sort of scramble 14th, which was worked reasonably well for me. To get points to the Olympic selection, you've got to ride the World Cups and stuff as well. So to an extent, the National Point Series has taken a little bit of a back seat, but equally each round of the National Point Series offers good points towards the Olympic selection. So yeah, I've got to give it, concentrated effort.
We'll catch up on those races in our next programme, but now it's back to the British Series. Also returning from America is Barry Clark, who, despite missing the last 2 rounds, is still 6th overall in the series. He probably starts today as favourite, though the fast course could throw up some surprises. It's ridden anti-clockwise, and from the start there is a fast descent before the riders circle the bowl and drop round the back of the woods to the bottom of the course. They then pop over the top of a small knoll before the stiffest climb up West Hill. From the top of the ridge there's a steep open descent before climbing up through the trees towards the end of the lap. Race commentary is by Hugh Porter.
It's going to be a mad dash from the gun as the riders fight for the lead before the first descent, which comes after only a couple of 100 yards. Not only is it a chance to get away, but being at the front also keeps you out of trouble. And first to the drop is David Hemming, a renowned downhiller. Following him is Thackeray and Clark, and you can see the advantage Hemming has gained already, though I'm sure the main contenders will quickly reel him in as they head round the bowl. Adrian Timmis there, who won the last round, won't be concerned about Hemming with 6 laps to go. Picking them up at the bottom of the course, and in fact it's Timmis who's now leading, just ahead of Clark and Ian Cuthbertson. You can see how they're going to try and sit in on these fast sections as Martin Early goes through. They're just ahead of Thackeray. At the moment the field's all together, but we've still got the main climb to come, which will string them out. And all the favourites are now up near the front. Setting off a few minutes later are the women, and first down the descent is Alexander. Behind her, Jenny Greep is passing Morel, as again some of the other riders are getting a chance to go to the front. But it's early days, and this 4-lap race is not going to be won in the first few 100 yards. Caution being shown here on this fast descent as they approach the gate. Oh, who was that? I think it was Anne Smith, and she'll have a few bruises to show for that fall. After the long descent, and Alexander has continued to increase her advantage, and now she's starting the climb up to the knoll. So the chasers, who are being led by Alison Windos, have really got their work cut out if they're hoping to bridge the gap to the BMW Klein rider. Here's Greep already taking on liquid, and they're going to need lots today with the temperatures up in the 30s. And again, Sean Roberts well down the field in 7th spot, obviously still struggling to find form. The men are now dropping off the ridge after the main climb, and as you can see the field has stretched out with Timmis having inflicted the damage. So he's still on a high after his win in the last round, and he's now got a slight gap over Early, who's moved up to 2nd ahead of his teammate Clark. Last year these leading 3 were all in the rally team, so they know each other's strengths and weaknesses, with Clark definitely the best descender, but they're all good on the climbs. John Clare has now moved up to 4th. And he's Cuthbertson, but his left foot has come away from the pedal. Now that's going to be awkward on the descent. Craig chases him down and he looks comfortable. Those first half dozen are now spread out, while behind them the riders, resisting the temptation to chase too hard in this heat, and instead are tapping out their own pace. This group contains, among others, Guy and Gunnar. And the women are now coming down off the knoll, and Alexander looks set for a race on her own as she heads for the main climb, which is where her strengths really reflect. And for a change, Windos seems to be holding her place. She normally drops right back after the opening charge at the start, but she's actually increased her advantage over Morel. 4th is Robinson, who's Morel's main challenger in the series. Alexander's now dropping off the ridge, and you can see her back wheel sliding there when she brakes. So even though it's dry, this smooth grassy bank is quite slippery, and the riders have got to turn against the gradient to follow the course to the right. Windos has still maintained her position on the main climb, but Morel has closed the gap right down. And for Robinson, the worst situation is if Windos is between her and Morel. Roberts has moved up to 5th with Angela Ward on her wheel, and that's better for the Welsh rider because she's still in contention with those ahead. The men are now heading down the longest descent of the course on lap 2, and Timmis is still leading the charge, but now Early's right on his wheel, and those two have opened a significant gap on Clark, who was expected to be right up there today. Up the climb of the knoll, and you can see the difference in their styles, with Timmis sitting up to get as much air into his lungs as possible, while Early is more crouched over the bars pulling up. And behind them, Craig has now got on terms with Clay. Gary Coltman makes it 3 rally men in the top 6 as he's now past Cuthbertson, who's having his best ride since his 5th place in last year's Nationals. And chasing them down are a group of younger riders. Timmis is now starting the longest climb on the course, and he's looking very comfortable, while Early seems to prefer pushing a bigger gear, and they are definitely moving away from Clark, who will be able to see them all the way up this long climb, and that'll be very demoralising for the British cyclo-cross champion. Craig is now on his own in 4th position, having passed and shook off Clay. But Clay's having a superb season on the road this year. He's the current leader in the sprint competition in the Sky City Centre races. Behind the top 5, though, the riders have now linked up to give a chasing group of 6. And there are the positions confirmed. At present, Lasonby, who was 4th last time out, looks like he's on for another good ride. However, Guy's having to work hard to stay with them.